Hey everybody, welcome back to Run and Gun, and I want to talk to you in this episode about tangents and how we can learn a little bit about tangents to make your photography and your composition just a little bit better. So, let's get down to it. What the heck is a tangent? Well, here's the definition and the boring part, so stick with me for a second. So, a tangent is defined as a straight line or a plane that touches a curve or curved surface at a point, but if extended, does not cross at that point. Well, that's the long and boring definition, but if I can summarize a tangent for you, it basically means touching but not intersecting. For example, in this shot, I am the subject and this board behind me is the background. And as you can see, the board runs straight through my head and intersects. It doesn't touch because in photography, we're obviously compressing a three-dimensional space in a two-dimensional image. So you have to be careful of how your subject interacts with your background. If my head were over here, for example, even though my head is not physically touching in three-dimensional space, this board, it looks like they're touching when we compress it down to a two-dimensional image. So a tangent will distract your viewer from the subject, and it's kind of awkward to look at. The same thing when we're talking about composition and cropping. If I were to crop this frame and bring it in to this edge right here, and my poster were to sit right on that edge, it would look a little bit awkward. So you don't want to have things sitting right on the edge of your composition. So let's actually get to some photos. Let's look at what tangents are and how you guys can avoid them in your compositions. Let's take a look. I shot these back in September. It was a little cold and rainy, but I got some pretty good images and I'm excited to show you guys. So this first shot, a C-17 is parked on the runway. As you can see on the right hand side of the composition, the nose of the plane is close to that right hand side, but it's not touching. I gave it a little bit of room, what I call to breathe on that right hand side. If it were cropped in and touching, that would be awkward. It would feel like the jet is pushed up against the side of the composition, the side of the frame, and it would be really weird, and your eye would immediately go there instead of looking at the rest of the image. Let's take a look at another shot. We have these defenders. This is now on the other side of the jet. They're standing underneath the wing and they're guarding this jet. Now I threw them in the lower third of this image to emphasize the scale and how big the C-17 is compared to a human reference. Now you can see they're close to the bottom of the frame, but I didn't put their feet directly on the bottom of the frame. That would look like they're actually standing on the frame, and your eyes would go there instead of towards the center where their faces are and where the focus is. Let's look at another image. Here we have a defender standing between this truck and between the right hand edge of the frame again. Now once again, I gave him that breathing room. If I were to crop in and have him squish between this trailer and the edge of the frame, that would look really awkward and distract you instead of getting the message of this image across to the viewer. And one last example, we have this defender here standing in the rain, guarding the tail of this C-17. And in the background, you can see the tail of the open end of the C-17, and you can see that his helmet is intersecting the back of the C-17, and the tail runs right through the helmet. It's not touching the top of it. If I were to get on eye level with him, yes, his helmet would be just touching the tail of that plane. But remember, they're not actually touching. He's standing a good probably 50 yards from the back of this plane, but when we're taking a three-dimensional space and we're compressing it into two dimensions, we have to use those layers to kind of fake our eyes and fool our eyes into thinking there's depth there when there's really not in a two-dimensional space. So it would look really awkward if his helmet were just touching on that line of the tail. I don't want that. So I got below his eye level to fix that situation. Now there's that intersection, that overlay, and that extra depth to help my viewers see depth in the frame. So that is all for this week, and that's all for tangents. I hope you guys learned something. I always learn something new when I'm sharing information with you, so I appreciate you sticking with me. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure you're subscribing down below and hitting that little notification button so you're getting up-to-date notifications every time I drop a new video. So hit that like button and make sure you comment down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. what kind of shoots have you been on where you've had issues with tangents that maybe ruined your photo? Maybe use a tangent to make your photo better and draw the attention somewhere else. So, until then, make sure you guys get out and go shoot. I'll see you all next week.